You back to East London, where the ANC national spokesperson Pule Mabe is addressing media.
Able to be thorough on how some of these things are being done. So we have wished them well, all the delegates that are here, and will continue to wish them well as we are really traversing this journey of their 9th provincial conference with them. Yes?
Is there an issue about Andile Lungisa spending for treasurer while he is a convict? Did that come up at all? And if it did, what is the perspective of the NEC?
Okay. More questions? Yes.
The last time the EPK failed to adopt credentials for all days was the election of spokesperson. Essentially, are you failing to manage your own internal affairs? Something as basic as he is a federal secretary of PSB of branch general meeting responses, but you are still discussing credentials and have not discussed critical issues of the basis of the people of the district. Are you taking them for a ride and just so inward looking that you're not even discussing topical issues like the revival of the alien economy of this province?
More questions?
In response to the court proceedings yesterday.
Okay, I will take the 3 and then we can always come back. Just the question around Comrade Andile Lungisa, whether it was raised, how it was addressed. So you see, this is what we do in a conference of the ANC. We have got what we call a closed session. And during the closed session, we ask yourselves from the media to at least be out. So matters discussed at the closed session of conference can't then be shared in this way during a Q&A session. Because if we do that, then there's no need for us to remove you from that closed session. So, anihlali kuma closed session. So, asizophendulana nento eziyenzakalayo kuma closed sessions. Asivaleni kanjani. What happened? So, failing to adopt credentials. We always have to make sure that in the adoption of credentials, we are thorough. We prove to delegates attending conference that we have paid regard and much attention to all the disputes. The 54th National Conference of the ANC, held in Nazareth, established a structure called the National Dispute Resolution Committee, which we never had before, to make sure that there are sufficient platforms within organization to attend to matters of concern or disputes that could be there. Even in this conference, members of the NDRC are also on site, so that if there are issues that need further cleaning or further resolution, such matters could be attended to. We take the work of the African National Congress quite seriously. It is not possible that a 3-day conference of the ANC will be able to deal with all the issues. By the time you come to conference, you would have gone to your regional conferences, you will have really embarked on a process of engaging even on policy matters. The expectation that when we get here, by the time we finish conference, we must emerge with an economic charter of the Eastern Cape. It's not possible. You can't do it in 3 days. You have got various platforms in the organization, whether it's general councils, your own BGMs that have got to discuss and ultimately select who become delegates to these conferences. Would have done quite a lot of work prior to also make sure that programs of the ANC that they emerge with are also customized, fit for purpose to be able to address the plight in their own communities. And we're quite happy with that. We don't come to conferences only to vote. There's a build-up towards conferences. I've clarified the adoption of credentials. We need to be thorough. The ANC can't put itself under pressure to adopt credentials only to come and make sound bites to the media. Because then when it does that, it loses that rigorness that it requires to be able to drive its own processes forward. We're a self-respecting organization. We pay serious attention on matters that are brought to us. So we're quite confident and happy with the processes, the way they've been unfolding. We are hopeful that by the time we conclude, there will be a leadership of the Eastern Cape, and it will do what they are expected to do. Court proceedings. Well, you would know that there was a court order yesterday that really allowed us to proceed in the manner that we are now doing, as it related to delegates of Hubusan. So that work is being done. That the Credentials Committee that sits also takes stock of all of those things and make sure that it does what courts would have said needed to be done. Our role as the National Executive Committee is to be here and protect the credibility and integrity of conference. We've got that duty. So we have to make sure that by the time conference rises, it has concluded on what it was convened to do. So we've got a duty, and yourselves in the media, you also need to help us a bit, making sure that a narrative we drive out there is not one that always suggests that there could be a crisis, even when there's no crisis. Because you are very important. People from far afield really rely on yourselves to pick up on what is happening in these conferences. But if messages tend to go out there suggesting a possible crisis, people who believe in the ANC start to panic. So let's just help each other, make sure that the narrative we place out there is one that consolidates the confidence of our people. That's why we're here. We are here to make sure conference doesn't collapse. And we can assure every delegate of the more than 1,800 delegates, including non-voting delegates, that when this is their home, they must feel protected. They are safe. Because this is a festival of ideas, if you look at it. So the democratic space created by conference is one that must allow members of the ANC to be able to express themselves, but to also agree on a program that the leadership that is coming in is going to have to champion. So we are here, and we'll make sure that conference does what it was convened to do. That clarifies your issue. Is there another issue that...
You call it a festival of ideas, but not a single idea has come through because you've not got the permission. You've essentially been stuck in Credential. Which means essentially if a conference is still on for 3 days without credentials being adopted, there's a threat of a collapse. It happened in the UK this week in Limpopo. It collapsed last night.
Well, a conference is a festival of ideas because ideas generated and to be expressed at conference do not only come about on the eve of conference sitting. I mean, we have already developed policy discussion documents. We've had the NEC reflecting on that. Provinces have played a role in inputting on that process of policy documents. Now, this conference, the bigger part of a conference like this is the elective part. So that's why we call them elective conferences. Now, the people who must participate in that election in a conference should be duly verified delegates who will have emerged from branch general meetings or BBGM, biannual general meetings, which would have been given this specific mandate to produce delegates to conference. But in those meetings, Samkel, discussions are also held on policy documents. Because a 3-day conference, while it's a festival of ideas, it's not going to really start discussing policy matters endlessly. When they emerge and rise out of conference, they adopt something called a conference declaration. And that declaration really begins to speak to areas that they must pay attention on, that the leadership needs to focus itself on. Let's say they conclude conference and they have not entirely dealt with the full business of conference. The incoming leadership can, out of its own volition, convene a provincial general council. That is provided for in the constitution of the African National Congress. So there is no challenge at all. By the way, conferences of the ANC are not starter packs of the organization itself. The organization has been existing since 1912. So we don't come to a conference because tomorrow I sure ANC taba isantsa iphela. So the life of the ANC is beyond conference. So ANC in a bophelo baga idimo conference. The conference ifela, there will still be the African National Congress. That is the expectation. So you are here with us. If there are updates we need to give to the media, we will do so from time to time. But we can assure you that the conference is proceeding. Well, I was not aware of the issues of Limpopo. I'm sure the NYTT will come and brief us through the SGO on what would have transpired. So I'm not at liberty to really enter that space without getting much reports. Otherwise, we'll become creative. And it's dangerous to be creative. So we need to get facts and then clarify these issues based on facts.
Can you just give us a roadmap now going forward with the plenary now back in session? When are we going back in? When is the president coming to close?
Well, we'll brief you because the Credentials Committee was sitting. One just needs to really get closer to that process and then look at the program. And because, I mean, we have created this space for yourselves, so we'll come back here and update the media on the program, at what point do you come in, when it becomes open sessions. I'm sure you even gave them coffee. So it's quite, yeah, I mean, there's even a coffee station, so you guys don't need to feel cold. Okay. Do we still have more questions?
There were allegations that you were trying to reach this conference at Pule Mabe. In essence, trying to swing it in favor of certain individuals by frustrating a certain queries of certain individuals from the provincial trustee. And some was alluded by saying that some may have a desire to leave the ANC at all costs and not follow due process. Is there any substance to the allegation?
Well, it's quite unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate that such statements would be made. Luthuli House does not get itself involved on who should emerge and lead in a province or in a region. That is why we unleash our full machinery of your National Dispute Resolution Committee, NEC, deployees, even reinforce where required, like getting ourselves to be able to make sure that the media people get update from time to time. So it's quite unfortunate if those allegations were made. They are quite unfortunate, they are baseless, unfounded, dangerous, and divisive. We don't entertain that. Because the SGO, which deals with this, now under the stewardship of the Treasurer General, owing to the ill health of our DSG, whom we continue to wish well, does everything to make sure that it satisfies and meets the minimum requirements of our own guidelines. We don't do that. I mean, we have been in various other conferences. We don't get to those conferences and want to position ourselves as possible leaders. Members of the ANC, branches of the African National Congress, as they prepare for the 55th National Conference, will basically ensue with nomination processes, and they will decide on the leadership they want. They might decide that all of us who were elected at the 54th National Conference are no longer fit enough to take the ANC forward. It is their democratic choice if they do so. So there is no leader of the ANC who leads at the national level who will go and impose his will on structures or try to swindle, to use your word, or try to swindle things so that they could produce a certain outcome. We don't do that. We are a self-respecting organization. We too are self-respecting cadres of the movement. We understand that. When we are here in the Eastern Cape, we are not here to come and market ourselves or, produce some unknown ambitions so that no. If people think by December, if they say this leadership did not do enough, I am not hard. That's how things are done here in the ANC. So these allegations, very unfounded, dangerous, divisive, well, to the extreme, they come across as naughty. It's naughtiness. How do you say something like that? How do you make allegations like that? about the leadership. So now, if we say that, Reina, we don't believe in the integrity of our own processes, then what do we believe in? Remember, we pledge allegiance to process of the ANC. Every one of us, including the leadership of the Eastern Cape, has got a responsibility to protect and safeguard the integrity and credibility of ANC processes. Now, when such statements are being made, what they do is that they go against our own ability to protect the integrity and credibility of processes. The reason why delegates are here, Samgem, is because they have submitted themselves to internal process of the ANC. The very processes that they want to see produce some of them as leaders. It's very important, because without a process in the ANC, how do you produce leaders? Because leaders are produced through process. So it's very important that we have got that kind of a shared understanding on how...
All right, that is the ANC's Pule Mabe. They're giving an update at the conference of the ANC in the Eastern Cape. It's taking place in East London at the International Convention Centre, addressing a number of issues, key among them being the issue of the adoption of credentials and its implications for, how long the conference will take. Because as things stand, this conference, which was meant to be concluding today, is now set to spill over onto Monday, onto tomorrow. So that's the one issue. The other issue, of course, you heard being raised, they had to do with the standing of one Andile Lungisa in the Eastern Cape, who is reported to be among those who are being considered for election as treasurer in the province, at least according to one of the leadership slates that are before the delegates there. He might be in contention for the position of provincial treasurer. Now, you and I know that Andile Lungisa was convicted of a crime, spent some time in jail and came out. And you and I also know that the ANC has a resolution that says those who are charged and convicted, charged or convicted, whatever the case may be, should step aside from leadership positions. And just recently, as early as about a week or two ago, the ANC amplified that position to say this includes not availing yourself for election within ANC structures. That's not the answer you heard coming out of Pule Mabe there. The answer from him was to say that I can't address it, that issue that you are asking, because it came out of a closed door session. I don't want to address it in the media. So we'll leave that there now. And